The radio crackled to life at 3:47 hours, cutting through the pre-dawn silence of the USS Gerald R. Ford like a knife through bone. All stations, this is Neptune Base. We have a code black situation. Repeat, code black. Lieutenant Commander Kestrel Phantom Voss sat upright in her narrow bunk, instantly alert despite having logged barely 3 hours of sleep. The carrier's hull vibrated beneath her feet as engines spun up somewhere deep in the ship's belly. Code black. In 12 years of naval aviation, she'd heard those words exactly twice before. Both times, people died. The overhead speakers burst to life. Flight crews to ready rooms immediately. This is not a drill. Phantom's hands moved with practiced efficiency, pulling on her flight suit, her movements sharp and economical. Around her, the squadron quarters erupted into controlled chaos, pilots stumbling from bunks, shouting questions that no one could answer yet. She was the first to reach Ready Room 2, where the overhead displays showed nothing but static. Commander Jake "Bulldog" Morrison followed close behind, his face grim in the harsh fluorescent light. "What do you think, Phantom?" Another goat herder with an RPG. Before she could answer, the room's secure phone rang once. Morrison grabbed it, his expression shifting from casual concern to stone-cold seriousness in seconds. "Roger that, sir. We'll be ready in 15. He hung up and turned to face the rapidly filling room. "Listen up, people. 6 hours ago, a Chinese Type 55 destroyer went dark approximately 200 nautical miles southeast of our position. Last transmission indicated they were investigating an unidentified submarine contact." Morrison paused, letting the weight of his words settle. 30 minutes ago, a merchant vessel reported seeing what appeared to be a massive underwater explosion in that exact grid square. The room fell silent except for the carrier's ambient hum. Phantom felt her pulse quicken, not from fear but from anticipation. This was what she'd trained for, what kept her sharp during endless patrol flights over empty ocean. "Beijing is claiming their ship suffered a catastrophic engineering failure," Morrison continued. "They're requesting international assistance with search and rescue, but intelligence suggests something else entirely." He gestured to the main display, which now showed a tactical overview of the South China Sea. Satellite imagery indicates at least 3 submarines converged on the destroyer's last known position. None of them were supposed to be there. Morrison's eyes swept across the assembled pilots. Whatever happened out there, it wasn't an accident, and now we're being tasked to find out exactly what went wrong, before someone starts shooting at us too. The briefing room's atmosphere grew heavier as classified folders were distributed around the table. Phantom opened hers to reveal satellite photographs that made her stomach tight. The images showed an oil slick stretching for miles, punctuated by debris fields that looked disturbingly small against the vast expanse of dark water. The Liang-class destroyer Hefei was conducting what Beijing called routine maritime patrol operations. Intelligence Officer Lieutenant Sarah Chen began, her voice clinical and precise. "But signals intelligence suggests they were tracking something that shouldn't exist according to every submarine database we have." She clicked to the next slide, showing sonar readings that resembled a fever dream of acoustic signatures. These were the last transmissions from the Hefei before they went silent. Notice the frequency patterns here. She pointed to a series of wavy lines that seemed to pulse with an almost organic rhythm. "This isn't consistent with any known submarine signature in anyone's fleet." Bulldog leaned forward, squinting at the data. "Could be a decoy, some kind of acoustic countermeasure." "That's what we thought initially," Chen replied. "But look at this." The next image showed underwater terrain mapping from the area. Where there should have been empty ocean floor, the sonar painted something massive and geometrically impossible, angular structures that seemed to defy both physics and military engineering. Phantom studied the readouts with the methodical attention that had kept her alive through 2 combat deployments. The signatures were wrong, the shapes were wrong, and the timing was catastrophically wrong. How many crew aboard the Hefei? 350 souls, Chen answered quietly. The room absorbed this information in silence. 350 sailors, most of them barely older than Phantom had been when she first earned her wings. Young men and women who joined their navy to serve their country, not to disappear into the depths over something that shouldn't exist. Our mission is threefold, Morrison announced, standing to address the room. First, we conduct search and rescue operations for any survivors from the Chinese destroyer. Second, we gather intelligence on whatever caused this incident. And third, he paused, meeting each pilot's eyes in turn, we make damn sure it doesn't happen to us. Phantom raised her hand. Rules of engagement, sir. Morrison's expression darkened. Weapons free if fired upon. But remember, we're technically in international waters providing humanitarian assistance. Try not to start World War III before breakfast. As the briefing concluded, and pilots began filing out to prep their aircraft, Phantom lingered, studying the sonar images. Something about the patterns nagged at her, like a word on the tip of her tongue that wouldn't quite form. The flight deck of the USS Gerald R. Ford stretched before Phantom like a carefully orchestrated ballet of controlled violence. Steam rose from the catapults in ghostly columns, while deck crews in color-coded jerseys moved between aircraft with practiced precision. Her A-18 Super Hornet sat in position, its twin engines already spooling up to operational temperature. She walked her pre-flight inspection with the same ritual attention she'd performed thousands of times before, but today every detail carried extra weight. Control surfaces moved smoothly through their ranges, weapons pylons showed green across the board, and the targeting pod's optics were crystal clear. Whatever waited for them out there, she'd meet it with $25 million worth of American aerospace engineering at her fingertips. Phantom, your flight lead for this one, Morrison called out over the engine noise. Take Wolverine and Spike with you. Stay sharp out there. She nodded, pulling on her helmet as the carrier turned into the wind. The familiar weight of the HMD settled over her eyes, transforming her view of the world into a complex overlay of flight data, threat warnings, and navigation markers. This was her element, not the cramped ready rooms or endless briefings, but here, strapped into 30,000 pounds of barely controlled power. The catapult officer gave the wind-up signal, and Phantom felt the familiar surge of acceleration as steam pressure built beneath her aircraft. 2.7 seconds later, she was airborne, climbing through the pre-dawn darkness toward a mystery that had already claimed one ship and 350 lives. Neptune Base, this is Phantom Flight departing Mother at Angels 20, heading 170, she transmitted, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. Roger, Phantom Flight. You are cleared to proceed to Investigation Area Delta. Be advised, Chinese search and rescue helicopters are already on scene. Maintain safe distance but observe and report. Below, the South China Sea stretched endlessly in all directions, its surface deceptively calm in the growing light. Somewhere beneath those waters lay the answers they'd been sent to find, and possibly something that had already demonstrated its willingness to kill anyone who came looking. Phantom checked her formation, 2 FA-18s trailing slightly behind and to her sides, their pilots' voices crackling over the tactical frequency as they ran through final systems checks. Whatever had destroyed the Hefei, it was about to meet the United States Navy's most advanced carrier strike group. She only hoped it would be enough. The debris field appeared on radar long before it became visible to the naked eye, a scatter of metallic contacts spread across 12 square nautical miles like broken toys in a bathtub. As Phantom's flight descended through 15,000 feet, the scope of the destruction became apparent through their targeting pod's high-definition feeds. Jesus Christ, Wolverine's voice crackled over the comm. That's not wreckage, that's confetti. He wasn't wrong. The remains of the Chinese destroyer had been reduced to pieces no larger than a shipping container, scattered across the ocean's surface in patterns that defied conventional explosive damage. Phantom had seen ships destroyed by mines, torpedoes, and missiles during her tour in the Persian Gulf. This was something else entirely. Phantom Flight, this is Neptune Base. We're receiving your video feed now. Can you identify any hull sections large enough for survivors? Phantom banked her aircraft for another pass, the Super Hornet's sensors painting a detailed picture of the devastation below. Life rafts, emergency equipment, personal effects, all floating in a massive oil slick that rainbowed the water's surface under the morning sun. But no survivors, no rescue beacons, no signs that anyone had escaped the Hefei's final moments. Neptune Base Phantom, negative on survivors, the ship appears to have been pulverized. I've never seen damage patterns like this. 3 Chinese search helicopters worked the edges of the debris field, their crews methodically recovering what bodies they could find. Phantom watched them through her targeting system, nodding their professional efficiency even in the face of what had to be a devastating blow to their Navy's morale. Phantom, check your scope, bearing 090, Spike called out suddenly. I'm getting a subsurface contact, big one. Phantom's radar operator immediately shifted focus, and within seconds her threat display lit up with a new contact. Large, metallic, and moving slowly beneath the surface, approximately 5 miles from the debris field. The signature was unlike anything in her identification database. Neptune Base, Phantom Flight has a subsurface contact, bearing 090 from the debris field. Contact appears to be moving at approximately 8 knots, depth unknown. The response from the carrier was immediate and tense. Phantom Flight, maintain observation distance. Do not, repeat, do not approach closer than 2 nautical miles to that contact. But as Phantom adjusted course to maintain visual contact, her targeting pod caught something that made her blood run cold. The object beneath the water wasn't moving randomly. It was moving in a deliberate search pattern, methodically covering the debris field like a predator investigating its kill. The subsurface contact moved with an intelligence that chilled Phantom to the bone. Through her targeting pod's thermal imaging, she could make out a vague outline beneath the water, something massive, angular, and clearly artificial. But its movements suggested more than mere machinery. This thing was hunting through the wreckage with purpose. Neptune Base Phantom. The subsurface contact is not behaving like a conventional submarine. It's investigating the debris field, like it's looking for something specific. The radio silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds before Neptune Base responded. Phantom Flight, maintain overwatch but do not engage unless directly threatened. We're launching additional assets to your position. Additional assets. That meant more than just fighters, probably a guided missile destroyer and possibly a submarine of their own. The Navy was taking this seriously, but Phantom wondered if they truly understood what they were dealing with. Wolverine, Spike, spread out and maintain a perimeter. I want eyes on that thing from 3 angles, she ordered, banking her aircraft to circle at a respectful distance. The Chinese helicopters had noticed the subsurface contact too and were backing away from the debris field with obvious urgency. Through her headset, she could hear multiple conversations happening simultaneously on different frequencies. The carrier's Tactical Operations Center was alive with activity, analyzing every piece of data her aircraft transmitted. But Phantom had the advantage of being here, of seeing firsthand how wrong everything felt about this situation. The contact suddenly changed course, its massive bulk turning toward the Chinese helicopters with frightening speed. Phantom watched her targeting display as the signature accelerated. 8 knots became 15, then 25, moving faster than any submarine in existence. All aircraft, this is Phantom. Unknown subsurface contact is accelerating toward the Chinese search helicopters. Speed now indicates 30 knots and increasing. One of the Chinese pilots must have seen something on his sonar, because the helicopters suddenly scattered, climbing rapidly and transmitting rapid-fire Mandarin that didn't require translation. They were scared. The subsurface contact reached the position where the helicopters had been hovering just moments before, then stopped abruptly. For several long minutes, it remained motionless, as if considering its options. Then, slowly, deliberately, it began to rise. Neptune Base, Phantom. The contact is surfacing. Repeat, unknown contact is coming up. The water began to churn and foam as something enormous displaced massive amounts of seawater. Phantom increased power and climbed, wanting altitude between herself and whatever was about to break the surface. Her weapons systems were armed, but she had no idea if conventional ordnance would even be effective against what she was witnessing. The first thing to break the surface was a tower, angular, metallic, and covered in what looked like sensor arrays that belonged to no known military technology. What emerged from the depths defied every assumption about naval architecture and marine engineering that Phantom had learned in her 12 years of service. The craft that breached the surface wasn't a submarine in any conventional sense. It was a predator designed by minds that understood water as a medium for war in ways human engineers had never imagined. The vessel's hull stretched nearly 400 feet in length, its surface covered in overlapping metallic scales that seemed to shift and flex like living tissue. Where traditional submarines were essentially tubes designed to withstand pressure, this craft resembled a manta ray crossed with a stealth fighter, its broad wings clearly designed for both underwater maneuvering and surface operations. Neptune Base, Phantom. I need to amend my previous report. This is not a submarine. This is something else entirely. Hull length approximately 400 feet, beam approximately 200 feet. Configuration unlike anything in our databases. The craft's tower bristled with sensor arrays that tracked Phantom's aircraft with mechanical precision. She could feel the weight of electronic eyes upon her, analyzing her aircraft's capabilities with the same clinical attention she was paying to the mysterious vessel below. Phantom, Wolverine. I'm picking up active radar emissions from the contact. It's painting us with multiple tracking systems. The tension in Wolverine's voice was understandable. Being targeted by unknown weapons systems was never comfortable, but being targeted by weapons systems that shouldn't exist was genuinely terrifying. Phantom checked her electronic warfare suite and confirmed multiple active sensors focused on her flight. All aircraft maintain formation but be ready to break on my command, she ordered, her training taking over despite the unprecedented nature of the situation. Neptune Base, request immediate guidance on rules of engagement. The response came not from the carrier but from a different voice, older, more senior, carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making decisions in crisis situations. Phantom Flight, this is Admiral Harrison aboard USS Ford. You are weapons-free if that contact takes any overtly hostile action, but I need more intelligence before we escalate this situation. Admiral Harrison. Phantom had never spoken directly to a carrier group commander before, but she recognized the name. Harrison had commanded destroyers during the Taiwan Strait crisis 5 years earlier, earning a reputation for aggressive tactics and clear thinking under pressure. The mysterious craft completed its surface evolution and began moving again, its unusual hull cutting through the water with minimal wake despite its size. More disturbing was its course, heading directly toward the Chinese helicopters, which were now frantically calling for assistance in multiple languages. Neptune Base, Admiral, the contact is closing on the Chinese search aircraft. Recommend we advise them to clear the area immediately. Already done, Phantom. Beijing has ordered their helicopters to withdraw, but I need you to stay on station and observe. Whatever this thing is, it might be responsible for destroying the Hefei." The mysterious craft moved through the water with a fluid grace that seemed to mock the laws of physics. Traditional submarines push through water like blunt instruments, their cylindrical hulls creating turbulence and drag. This vessel moved like water was its natural element, its scaled hull undulating in ways that suggested biomechanical engineering principles no human designer had ever conceived. Phantom watched through her targeting pod as the craft approached the fleeing Chinese helicopters. The lead helicopter, a Z-20 medium lifter, was climbing desperately toward altitude while transmitting distress calls that needed no translation. Fear was universal, regardless of language. The unknown vessel's tower rotated to track the helicopter's movement, and Phantom caught a glimpse of what looked like weapon ports opening along its upper hull. The geometry was wrong. Instead of traditional missile tubes or gun mounts, these openings seemed to iris open like camera apertures, revealing internal mechanisms that glowed with a cold blue light. "All aircraft, break formation and climb immediately," Phantom ordered, her voice cutting through the radio chatter. Years of combat experience had taught her to recognize the moment before violence erupted, and every instinct screamed that they were seconds away from witnessing something catastrophic. The Chinese helicopter never had a chance. The energy weapon that emerged from the mysterious craft's hull bore no resemblance to conventional ordnance. Instead of missiles or cannon fire, a coherent beam of blue-white energy reached out across the water like a finger of concentrated lightning. The helicopter simply came apart, its rotor system separating from the fuselage in a shower of metal fragments that scattered across the water like deadly confetti. "Jesus Christ," Spike's voice cracked over the comm, "it just vaporized them." Phantom felt ice form in her veins as she watched the debris rain into the ocean. 12 Chinese sailors had just died in front of her eyes, killed by technology that belonged in science fiction rather than military reality. But the implications were worse than the immediate tragedy. If this craft had similar weapons when it encountered the destroyer Hefei, the ship's crew had never stood a chance. "Neptune Base, Phantom. The unknown contact just engaged and destroyed a Chinese search helicopter using what appeared to be directed energy weapons. I say again, the contact is armed with energy-based weapon systems." Admiral Harrison's response was immediate and grim. "Roger, Phantom. Consider the contact hostile. You are cleared to engage if it demonstrates hostile intent toward you or American vessels." The mysterious craft's tower swiveled toward Phantom's position, and she felt the electronic pressure of multiple targeting systems focusing on her aircraft. Whatever had just killed those Chinese sailors was now evaluating her as a potential threat. The electronic warfare suite in Phantom's A-18 began screaming warnings as multiple targeting radars painted her aircraft from the mysterious vessel below. The frequency patterns were unlike anything in her threat database, modulated in ways that suggested signal processing capabilities far beyond current military technology. "Phantom flight, defensive formation," she ordered, pulling her aircraft into a steep climb while activating countermeasures. Chaff and flares burst from her Super Hornets dispensers, creating a cloud of decoys that might confuse conventional missiles. Against directed energy weapons, however, they would be useless. "Wolverine, Spike, separate and maintain standoff distance. If this thing engages me, you have weapons free to respond." The mysterious craft had stopped moving, settling into the water like a predator preparing to strike. Through her targeting pod, Phantom could see additional weapon ports opening along its hull, the same iris-like apertures that had just destroyed the Chinese helicopter. Whatever this thing was, it had enough firepower to engage multiple targets simultaneously. "Neptune Base, Phantom. I count at least 6 active weapon systems on the unknown contact. Request immediate support." "Phantom, Be advised USS Leyte Gulf is closing your position at flank speed, ETA 22 minutes. Can you maintain contact until then? 22 minutes. In air-to-air combat, engagements typically lasted seconds, not minutes. But this wasn't conventional combat. This was first contact with something that shouldn't exist, armed with weapons that redefined the possible. The craft's tower continued tracking her movements with mechanical precision. Phantom could feel the weight of its attention, the sense of being studied by an intelligence that was calculating her aircraft's capabilities and vulnerabilities. The Predator was choosing its moment. She broke left, diving toward the water in a defensive maneuver designed to present a difficult targeting solution. Her Super Hornet's engine screamed as she pulled nearly 7 Gs, her flight suit inflating to keep blood flowing to her brain. Behind her, Wolverine and Spike maintained overwatch, their aircraft loaded with weapons that might prove as effective as throwing rocks. The energy weapon fired again. Phantom saw the beam lance through the space where her aircraft had been milliseconds before, the coherent light turning water vapor in the air into a brief, brilliant plasma channel. The missed shot illuminated the fundamental problem she faced. This wasn't a gun that fired projectiles she could outmaneuver, but a weapon that moved at light speed. "Phantom, you're being targeted," Spike called out unnecessarily. She could see the craft's weapons tracking her through her defensive maneuvers, calculating interception points with computer precision. The beam fired twice more in rapid succession, each shot passing close enough that Phantom could feel electromagnetic interference crackling through her aircraft systems. Phantom's Super Hornet shuddered as electromagnetic pulses from the near-miss energy beams interfered with her flight control systems. Warning lights cascaded across her instrument panel as computers briefly lost synchronization, then slowly re-established connections through backup pathways. The aircraft's fly-by-wire system compensated for the electromagnetic interference, but she could feel the slight delay in control responses that might prove fatal in extended combat. Neptune Base, Phantom. Unknown contact is engaging with directed energy weapons. My aircraft is experiencing electromagnetic interference from near misses. Whatever this thing is, it's jamming our electronics just by shooting at us. She rolled inverted and pulled through a split-S maneuver, diving toward the water to gain speed while presenting a more difficult target profile. The mysterious craft's weapons tracked her movement with mechanical precision, but the targeting solutions became more complex as she used the water's surface to mask her radar signature. Through her targeting pod, she could see the vessel rotating to maintain weapons bearing on her aircraft. Its scaled hull flexed and adjusted like living tissue, optimizing its configuration for surface combat. This wasn't just advanced technology. It was adaptive technology that modified itself in real time based on tactical requirements. Wolverine, Spike, I need you to approach from different vectors. If we can force it to split its targeting between multiple threats, we might find an opening. Her wingmen acknowledged and began maneuvering to attack positions, their aircraft loaded with Harpoon anti-ship missiles that represented the cutting edge of American naval aviation. Against conventional targets, 8 Harpoons would sink any surface combatant afloat. Against this thing, Phantom wasn't sure conventional weapons would even penetrate its hull. The craft seemed to recognize the changing tactical situation. Additional weapon ports opened along its flanks, and Phantom counted at least 12 active energy weapons now tracking her flight. Whatever intelligence controlled this vessel, it understood modern air warfare tactics well enough to adapt its defensive posture accordingly. All aircraft, the contact is bringing additional weapons online. Recommend we engage before it achieves full combat capability. Admiral Harrison's voice cut through the tactical frequency. Phantom Flight, you are weapons free. Repeat, weapons free. Eliminate that contact before it can threaten the carrier group. Phantom armed her weapons and locked onto the mysterious vessel, but her targeting computer struggled to establish a firing solution. The craft's hull absorbed radar energy like a stealth aircraft, and its irregular shape confused the missile guidance systems designed to target conventional ships. "Target lock is unstable," she reported. "The contact has stealth characteristics that interfere with missile guidance." The energy weapons fired again, multiple beams reaching out simultaneously toward all three aircraft. This time, one found its mark. Spike's A-18 took the energy beam along its port wing route, the directed energy weapon slicing through titanium and composite materials like a surgical laser through tissue. The aircraft didn't explode dramatically like in movies. Instead, it came apart with mechanical precision as structural supports failed and control surfaces separated from the airframe. "Spike is going down," Wolverine's voice cracked with stress and adrenaline. "I see a chute." Through her peripheral vision, Phantom caught sight of the ejection seat's rocket motor firing, carrying Spike clear of his disintegrating aircraft just before it hit the water. The pilot's parachute deployed properly, but he was now floating in the ocean less than half a mile from a vessel that had just demonstrated its willingness to kill anyone who approached. "Neptune Base, Phantom. Spike is down, pilot ejected successfully. We need search and rescue immediately." "Roger, Phantom. SAR helicopter is launching now." But Phantom knew the rescue helicopter would never reach Spike if she and Wolverine couldn't neutralize the threat. The mysterious craft was already turning toward the pilot's position, its sensors undoubtedly tracking the emergency beacon in his survival equipment. Rage and training merged in her mind as she rolled her aircraft toward the vessel, accepting targeting locks from multiple energy weapons while she lined up her own attack run. Her Super Hornet carried 4 Harpoon missiles, each one carrying a 600-pound warhead designed to sink destroyers. Time to find out if 20th-century weapons could damage 21st-century mysteries. "Wolverine, follow my lead. We go in together, maximum rate of fire." "Roger, Phantom, I'm with you." She dove toward the water, using gravity to build speed while her targeting computer finally achieved a stable lock on the vessel's hull. The craft's energy weapons tracked her approach, multiple beams converging on her flight path, but she held course until the last possible second. Fox 3, she called, launching 2 harpoons in rapid succession before braking hard left to avoid the energy beams that turned the air around her aircraft into superheated plasma. The missiles streaked toward their target at nearly the speed of sound, their active radar seekers painting the vessel with targeting energy. Wolverine launched his weapons moments later, 4 more harpoons adding to the inbound salvo. 6 missiles, 1,200 pounds of high explosives, approaching a target that had just demonstrated technology decades ahead of anything in human arsenals. The mysterious craft's defensive systems engaged with mechanical efficiency that was beautiful and terrifying to watch. The vessel's defensive response revealed technology that redefined Phantom's understanding of modern warfare. Instead of conventional close-in weapon systems or missile interceptors, the craft's hull erupted with dozens of smaller energy emitters that created a dome of intersecting beams above its position. The incoming Harpoon missiles struck this energy field and simply ceased to exist, not exploded, not deflected, but vaporized so completely that they left no debris trails. "Jesus Christ," Wolverine's voice carried the kind of awe usually reserved for natural disasters. "It just deleted them." Phantom pulled out of her attack run, climbing rapidly while her mind processed what she'd just witnessed. 6 state-of-the-art anti-ship missiles, each one capable of mission-killing a destroyer, had been eliminated without the mysterious vessel even changing course. Whatever defensive technology this craft possessed, it made conventional naval warfare obsolete. "Neptune Base, Phantom. Harpoon missiles ineffective against unknown contact. The vessel possesses defensive systems that appear to completely neutralize conventional ordnance." Admiral Harrison's response carried the weight of a man watching his strategic assumptions crumble in real time. Roger, Phantom. Continue engagement with available weapons. Available weapons. Her remaining armament consisted of an M61 Vulcan cannon with 500 rounds of 20mm ammunition, essentially throwing rocks at something that could vaporize cruise missiles. But Spike was still in the water, and the mysterious craft was moving toward his position with obvious intent. The vessel's scaled hull began to change configuration again, flattening and spreading like a manta ray preparing to feed. Phantom realized with growing horror that it intended to surface directly beneath her downed pilot. Whether to capture or kill him, the result would be the same. Spike would disappear into the depths with no trace remaining. Wolverine, we need to draw its attention away from Spike. Gun runs, maximum aggression. Phantom, our cannons won't even scratch that thing. Not trying to kill it, just trying to piss it off enough to chase us instead of him. She rolled inverted and dove toward the vessel's tower, her targeting pipper centered on what appeared to be its primary sensor array. The craft's energy weapons immediately swiveled to track her approach, multiple beams reaching out to intercept her aircraft. But Phantom had spent 2 combat deployments learning to thread needle-like gaps between missile envelopes and surface-to-air fire. Energy weapons might move at light speed, but they still required time to track and aim. Her cannon began firing at maximum rate, 500 rounds of depleted uranium tracers reaching out toward the mysterious vessel like a stream of molten metal. The 20mm rounds from Phantom's cannon struck the vessel's scaled hull and simply bounced off. The depleted uranium cores that could penetrate tank armor sparked against the craft's surface like firecrackers against battleship steel, leaving no visible damage beyond brief flashes of light where kinetic energy converted to heat. But the attack had the desired effect. The mysterious vessel's tower swiveled away from Spike's position, tracking Phantom's aircraft with what could only be described as mechanical irritation. She had succeeded in making herself the priority target, drawing the Predator's attention away from her downed wingman. Phantom, SAR helicopter is inbound. ETA 12 minutes, Neptune Base reported. Can you maintain contact's attention until pickup is complete? 12 minutes of dodging energy weapons that moved at light speed while flying an aircraft that suddenly felt as advanced as a World War II fighter. Phantom pulled through another defensive maneuver as coherent beams of energy carved through the air around her Super Hornet, each near miss causing further electromagnetic interference with her flight systems. Wolverine, alternate attack runs. Keep this thing focused on us. Her wingman acknowledged and rolled into his own gun run, his cannon fire proving equally ineffective against the vessel's armor. But the craft's weapons split their attention between the 2 aircraft, reducing the concentration of fire that either pilot faced. Small advantages, but in air combat, small advantages often meant the difference between living and dying. Through her targeting pod, Phantom watched the vessel's hull continue morphing, sections sliding apart to reveal internal mechanisms that defied her understanding of marine engineering. Whatever this craft was, it wasn't just a submarine with advanced weapons. It was a platform designed by principles that human naval architects had never imagined. The energy weapons fired again, multiple beams creating a web of coherent light that Phantom had to thread like a needle. Her Super Hornet's airframe groaned under the stress of 8G turns as she maneuvered to avoid each targeting solution, her flight suit inflating to keep blood flowing to her brain under the crushing acceleration. Phantom, I'm reading massive sonar contacts approaching from the northeast, Wolverine reported, his voice tight with concentration as he pulled through his own evasive maneuvers. Multiple subsurface signatures, looks like a whole formation. Phantom's blood turned to ice. If this vessel had friends coming to join the party, her small flight wouldn't last long enough for the SAR helicopter to reach Spike, let alone extract him safely. Neptune Base, Phantom, We have additional subsurface contacts approaching. Request immediate support. Roger, Phantom. USS Leyte Gulf is 15 minutes out, and we're launching additional air assets. 15 minutes. In air combat, 15 minutes was a lifetime. The first of the approaching contacts breached the surface 3 miles northeast of the original vessel, and Phantom's worst fears were confirmed. A second craft, nearly identical to the first but larger, rose from the depths with the same fluid grace and predatory intent. Its scaled hull caught the morning sunlight like armor designed by nature rather than human engineering. Neptune Base, Phantom. Second unknown contact has surfaced. Repeat, we now have 2 hostile vessels in the area of operations. The tactical situation had shifted from dangerous to potentially catastrophic. One mysterious vessel armed with energy weapons had been more than a match for her flight. 2 such craft could easily overwhelm any conventional naval force, including the approaching destroyer USS Leyte Gulf. The second vessel immediately began coordinating with the first, their movements suggesting a level of tactical communication that went beyond simple radio coordination. Phantom watched through her targeting pod as both craft adjusted their positions to create overlapping fields of fire, establishing a defensive perimeter around the debris field that would make any rescue attempt suicidal. Wolverine, we need to create separation between those 2 contacts. If they maintain mutual support, we'll never get Spike out of there. Roger, Phantom. I'll take the new arrival, you stay on the original. The second vessel's weapon ports were already opening, revealing the same iris-like mechanisms that had proven so devastating. But this craft was larger, and Phantom counted at least 20 individual weapon systems coming online. Whatever intelligence controlled these vessels had learned from the first engagement and brought overwhelming firepower to the second. Spike's emergency beacon continued transmitting from his position in the water, now directly between the 2 mysterious craft. The SAR helicopter would have to fly through their combined defensive envelope to reach him, a mission that was rapidly approaching the impossible. SAR flight, this is Phantom. The tactical situation has deteriorated significantly. We now have 2 hostile contacts with overlapping fields of fire. Recommend you hold at maximum standoff distance until we can create an opening. The rescue helicopter pilot's response carried the calm professionalism that characterized naval aviation. Roger, Phantom. We'll maintain position at 15 nautical miles and await your signal. 15 nautical miles. Far enough to stay alive, too far to help if Phantom and Wolverine couldn't neutralize at least one of the vessels. The mathematics of the situation were becoming increasingly unfavorable, but Phantom had never been one to back down from poor odds. She armed her remaining weapons, 2 more harpoons that would probably prove as ineffective as the first salvo, and began calculating attack vectors that might give her a chance of success. The answer came from an unexpected source. Phantom Flight, this is Destroyer Squadron 15 aboard USS Leyte Gulf. We are 10 minutes from your position and have solid radar locks on both contacts. Request you illuminate targets for naval gunfire support. Phantom felt a surge of hope as she processed the transmission. The Leyte Gulf was a Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser, armed with dual 5-inch guns that could deliver precision fire at ranges exceeding 13 miles. If her targeting pod could provide laser designation, the cruiser's shells might succeed where her missiles had failed. Leyte Gulf, Phantom. Roger, we can provide target illumination. Be advised, both contacts possess advanced defensive systems that have proven effective against conventional missiles. Understood, Phantom. Our 5-inch guns fire projectiles at 3 times the speed of sound. Let's see if these things can stop kinetic energy weapons. Phantom maneuvered her aircraft to achieve optimal positioning for laser designation, while avoiding the energy weapons that continued tracking her movements. The mysterious vessels seemed to recognize the changing threat environment. Their hulls were shifting configuration again, presenting more angular profiles that might deflect incoming projectiles. Wolverine maintained defensive mano.